Some people chase thrills above caution, believing the risks are worth the content. They ignore warnings, test limits, and push themselves towards stunts that look exciting online. Most of the time, these attempts end with embarrassment, scrapes, or close calls. But sometimes, the desire for views, daring shots, or viral moments turns fatal. It was March 14th, 2016, in a second-floor apartment in Tempe, Arizona. Mid-afternoon was quiet, with sunlight filtering through half-drawn blinds as the cluttered living space smelled faintly of takeout and leftover food. Asher Cade, 22, had been recording material for his Tech Hack channel for 3 hours. His subscriber count had plateaued at 4,300 for 6 months, and engagement had dropped steadily since January. Earlier that day, he scrolled through viral challenge compilations, looking for a concept that could regain traction. He found a resurfaced clip from 2014, a hoax claiming microwaving a phone for 30 seconds would enable emergency charging. Despite the video being widely debunked, Cade intended to film himself testing it with exaggerated skepticism, then reveal it as fake. Believing the irony would perform well with his audience, he placed his iPhone on a white ceramic plate and set it inside the microwave. The camera was positioned on the countertop, framing both him and the appliance. At 2:48 p.m., he pressed record, introduced the experiment, and set the microwave for 30 seconds on high. Within seconds, the phone's internal components began interacting with the microwave field. Around the 8-second mark, arcing became visible inside the phone, followed by a sharp, metallic popping sound. A brief white flash appeared behind the mesh of the microwave door. Cade leaned closer to inspect. At approximately 12 seconds, the battery went into thermal runaway. Instead of a single explosion, the battery violently vented, releasing hot gases and a brief jet of flame. The microwave door did not blast outward. Rather, its worn latch flexed and partially failed, allowing heat, flame, and fragments to escape. Within seconds, the phone arced violently, popping and sending sparks across the white ceramic plate. Acrid smoke began filling the small kitchen, curling around the countertops and triggering a harsh sting in Cade's throat. He staggered backward, coughing violently as he tried to wave the fumes away, his hands instinctively rising to shield his face. The microwave continued to smolder, releasing dense irritant gases from the damaged lithium-ion battery. Cade dropped to his knees near the refrigerator, struggling to breathe. Over the next several minutes, he became increasingly lightheaded and struggled to breathe as acrid smoke filled the kitchen. A neighbor in the unit below noticed smoke and called 911. Fire crews arrived shortly after and forced entry when there was no response at the door. Inside, they found Cade unresponsive on the kitchen floor, coughing violently but unable to move effectively, with smoke inhalation and chemical irritation evident. The microwave remained scorched, but the fire had not spread. Medical responders noted severe respiratory distress consistent with inhalation of dense irritant gases from the damaged lithium-ion battery. Authorities ruled the incident accidental, emphasizing that it resulted from improper use of electronic devices in a confined space, and highlighted multiple preventable points, beginning with not attempting the stunt at all and continuing with maintaining distance once damage became apparent. The case underscored the hazards involved when viral challenge content intersects with damaged or misused electronics. It was June 8, 2017, in a wooded ravine along the Chattahoochee River, just outside Roswell, Georgia. Late morning was quiet and isolated, with sunlight filtering through the trees and the sound of water moving over scattered rocks. Orion Thorne, 26, had driven out with his girlfriend to film an extreme DIY video for his adventure channel. His content focused on budget outdoor challenges, including building improvised shelters, starting fires without matches, and testing common survival techniques. On this day, he planned a homemade zipline experiment, combining simple engineering with outdoor adventure. Over the previous weeks, he had been attempting to increase upload frequency to maintain engagement. The zipline idea had come to him 2 days earlier, while watching a compilation of backyard engineering fails online. His plan was straightforward: prove that a functional zipline could be built using under $50 in materials. He purchased 120 feet of half-inch nylon rope, 2 standard aluminum carabiners, and a pair of work gloves. He scouted the ravine, identifying a sturdy oak tree on a flat ledge about 40 feet above the river as the starting point, and a pine tree near the water's edge as the end point. His plan was to wrap the rope around the trees, creating a descending slope, and slide down while holding the carabiners. He did not use a safety harness. His girlfriend asked if it was safe. He responded that it would be fine as long as the angle wasn't too steep. Orion climbed to the ledge and wrapped the rope around the oak tree 3 times, securing it with a double figure-8 knot. He tested the anchor briefly, then walked the other end of the rope down the dirt path to the pine tree, pulled it taut, and tied it at a lower point to establish a descending slope. The rope sagged slightly in the middle, but after tugging it twice to confirm stability, he determined it would hold. The rope itself was capable of supporting body weight. The problem lay in the design and the way it would be used. He climbed back to the top, clipped both carabiners onto the rope, and gripped them with his gloved hands. His girlfriend took position on a lower trail, recording on her phone. Orion pushed off and immediately gained speed faster than expected. The rope sagged more than he had anticipated, creating a steeper descent and rapidly increasing tension. Midway along the zip line, Orion's momentum exceeded what he had anticipated. The rope sagged sharply under his weight, tension spiking as he accelerated. His gloved hands struggled to maintain a firm grip on the carabiners, and suddenly, despite his best efforts, they slipped. He plunged roughly 12 feet, landing against jagged rocks along the riverbank with a sickening thud. Pain radiated through his back and head as he lay unconscious among the leaves and underbrush, the rope still taut above him, a silent record of the miscalculation. His girlfriend ran down the path toward him and called 911, remaining on the line with the dispatcher while being advised not to move him. Emergency responders arrived, but the steep slope and dense underbrush slowed access and extraction, requiring a stretcher team to carefully navigate the terrain. Orion was eventually stabilized and airlifted to Wellstar North Fulton Hospital after a prolonged extrication period, but despite medical intervention, he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Investigators documented the scene, noting that the rope remained tied between the trees exactly as Orion had set it up. Scattered leaves, scuffed gloves, and the indentations along the rope traced the path of the fall, leaving a clear record of the accident without relying on any video evidence. The autopsy report identified a basilar skull fracture and traumatic brain injury as the cause of death. Authorities ruled the incident accidental, attributing it to a functioning rope used in an unsafe configuration, lack of proper safety equipment, insufficient testing, and misjudgment of the rope's sag and angle. The case highlighted the hazards of DIY engineering projects in uncontrolled outdoor environments and the dangers of underestimating gravity, terrain, and equipment limitations. Investigators emphasized that the accident could have been prevented through proper safety measures, including the use of a harness, helmet, and test weights before attempting human use. It was July 21st, 2018, on the outskirts of Bakersfield, California, at an abandoned water treatment facility. Mid-morning was quiet, with birds calling overhead and wind rustling through broken fencing and overgrown weeds. Concrete tanks and rusted walkways stretched across the property, giving it an eerie, desolate feel. Neil Hallow, 24, had arrived earlier that morning, eager to film new content for his urban exploration channel. His videos focused on abandoned industrial sites and neglected urban spaces, using cinematic angles, drone shots, and slow-motion sequences to create suspense and drama. He had recently noticed that his view counts had plateaued, and he hoped this location would generate viral engagement. After climbing over a partially broken fence, Neil scoped out the facility. He spotted a large, empty chemical settling tank, about 8 feet deep, with algae-coated walls and a small pool of stagnant water at the bottom. Inspired by a recent edge challenge trend online, he decided to climb down into the tank and perform a slow motion jump from the inner wall into the shallow water. He believed the cinematic potential outweighed the risk. Neil set up his tripod along the rim and launched his drone for overhead shots. He descended carefully at first, testing the footing on the slick, algae-covered surface. Confident in his balance, he climbed up the tank wall and crouched, preparing for the jump. His plan was to leap into the shallow water while the drone captured the fall from above. He jumped, but misjudged the depth. The shallow water could not absorb the impact. Neil landed awkwardly, striking the back of his head on the concrete bottom. The force knocked him unconscious immediately. He rolled slightly, face down in the murky water, which quickly began to seep into his airway. The drone hovered nearby, capturing the full sequence of the miscalculated stunt. Hours later, a local photographer exploring nearby noticed the open fence and heard faint gurgling sounds from the tank. He called 911. Emergency responders arrived, but the isolated location and uneven terrain delayed immediate extraction. Neil was found submerged, unresponsive, and partially trapped against the tank wall. Paramedics attempted resuscitation on site before transporting him to a hospital in Bakersfield, but the blunt trauma and drowning injuries proved fatal. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Investigators documented the site, noting the shallow water depth, slick walls, and absence of safety measures. Scuff marks along the tank walls, disturbed algae, and indentations in the muddy bottom traced the path of Neil's jump, leaving a clear record of the miscalculated stunt without relying on any recordings. The case was ruled accidental, emphasizing that the combination of negligence, a desire for viral content, and misjudgment of environmental hazards had led to a preventable death. Authorities highlighted the dangers of DIY stunts in abandoned locations, particularly when shallow water or hidden hazards are involved. They concluded that this tragedy could have been avoided entirely by testing the environment beforehand, maintaining situational awareness, and avoiding unnecessary risk for content creation. The recovered evidence remains a stark warning about how quickly a single miscalculated action can turn deadly. It was October 2nd, 2018, on a narrow side street in the Tsukiji district of Tokyo, Japan. Night was quiet, with a few tourists drifting between izakayas and closing market stalls. Neon signs reflected off the damp pavement left by an earlier rain, and the smell of grilled seafood hung in the air. Theodore Ross, 29, ran a food challenge channel built around eating extreme or unusual dishes. His videos featured oversized portions, super spicy foods, and items most people would never try on camera. Fugu, Japanese pufferfish, had been on his list for months, but not the ordinary prepared fillet served legally in licensed restaurants. He wanted something riskier and more shocking to his audience: the liver, known to contain tetrodotoxin and prohibited from being served in Japan. He had researched the risks beforehand and knew that chefs undergo years of training and licensing strictly to avoid poisoning diners. He also knew the liver is specifically banned because even trained chefs cannot safely prepare it. Despite this, he arranged through a contact to visit a small, unlicensed stall that allegedly provided it off-menu for cash. That evening, he arrived at the stall. It was run by an older man with no posted certifications and no restaurant signage. Theodore paid in cash, about $150, and the vendor stepped into the back for several minutes before returning with a small plate of thin, translucent slices of fish. There was no formal presentation, just a dish placed on the counter. Theodore set his handheld camera up and filmed casually, speaking into the microphone about how this is the real fugu danger zone. He ate the slices one by one, commenting mostly on the texture and faint flavor. He didn't immediately feel strange, and after finishing the plate, he thanked the vendor and left. Back at his hotel later that night, he began feeling unusual sensations. Over the next 30 to 60 minutes, tingling spread from his lips and fingertips to his face and tongue. Numbness increased, and his coordination worsened. He attempted to stand and found his legs weak and unsteady. He dropped objects in his hands and struggled to move, signaling the onset of severe paralysis. Hotel staff later reported hearing a heavy fall from his room and, after receiving no response to repeated knocking, used a master key to enter. Theodore was conscious on the floor, aware of their presence, but unable to speak clearly or move more than small facial muscles, a classic presentation of advanced tetrodotoxin paralysis. Emergency services were called. By the time paramedics arrived, his breathing was shallow and increasingly ineffective as the paralysis progressed to the respiratory muscles. He was transported to a nearby hospital where supportive treatment was initiated, but tetrodotoxin has no specific antidote, and the severity of his paralysis overwhelmed attempts to stabilize him. He was pronounced dead later that night. Toxicology testing confirmed tetrodotoxin poisoning consistent with consumption of pufferfish organs. Investigators attempted to locate the food stall and vendor involved, but despite inquiries in the area, the individual could not be identified or contacted. The death was ruled accidental, resulting from ingestion of highly toxic fugu parts obtained and prepared outside Japan's legal regulatory system. The case circulated widely as a warning, not just about fugu, but about the growing pressure on online creators to escalate risks for views. The biological danger of tetrodotoxin is absolute. Tiny amounts can be fatal, and no filming opportunity or extreme challenge changes that reality. It was November 11th, 2016, at a private roadside zoo outside Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Mid-afternoon, visitors moved quietly among gravel paths and chain-link enclosures, housing lions, bears, and Bengal tigers. Giros Rivera, 21, had been traveling along the East Coast filming content for his lifestyle and travel channel. His brand focused on extreme experiences, skydiving, cliff diving, and swimming with sharks, and the videos often highlighted risk and spectacle. On this day, he had stopped at the roadside zoo after seeing a highway billboard advertising its exotic animals. He planned to film footage for his channel, carrying a phone and selfie stick as he walked the grounds shortly after entering at 2:15 p.m. By 2:40 p.m., Giros had reached the Bengal tiger enclosure. Two tigers rested in the shade near the back fence, while a male named Raja, 11 years old and weighing approximately 420 pounds, paced along the front. Giros positioned himself at the wooden fence, filming his interaction. He made small movements with the selfie stick, joking about getting closer for a better shot. A woman nearby, accompanied by two children, warned him to be careful, but Giros waved her off and continued. Moments later, he climbed over the wooden fence, ignoring the visible hazard. He extended the selfie stick through a gap in the chain link, attempting to get Raja fully in frame. The tiger's attention shifted immediately. Raja stopped pacing and turned toward him, lowering his head and focusing on the movement. Giros leaned closer, pressing his shoulder against the fence. The tiger advanced, each stride deliberate. In a sudden, violent motion, Raja lunged and clamped his jaws onto Giros's extended arm, pulling it through the chain link up to the shoulder. Giros screamed as the animal dragged him along the fence, his body pinned and twisting under the tiger's force. The selfie stick fell to the gravel several feet away. Nearby, visitors ran to alert staff. A staff member arrived after several tense moments, shouting and activating an air horn. The loud noise startled Raja enough for him to release his grip, retreating back into the enclosure after a brief, violent struggle. Giros collapsed onto the gravel, his arm severely mangled from shoulder to wrist. Deep lacerations exposed bone, tendons, and severed arteries. Blood pooled quickly beneath him, soaking the gravel. The staff member applied direct pressure to the wounds and called for emergency help, while other visitors were guided to safety. Paramedics arrived shortly afterward and found Giros in hypovolemic shock. He was stabilized as best as possible on site, but the extent of the injuries, combined with rapid blood loss, left him in critical condition. During transport to a medical center, he suffered cardiac arrest. Despite resuscitation efforts en route and at the hospital, Giros Rivera was pronounced dead at 3:34 p.m. Investigators recovered the selfie stick and phone, which contained footage of the moments leading up to the attack. The final frames captured Giros smiling at the camera, with Raja visible in the background seconds before the lunging strike. The enclosure and wooden fence were documented, revealing gaps and inadequate safety barriers that allowed him to reach through and climb over. The facility was later cited for insufficient visitor protection, but remained open to the public. The incident was ruled accidental. Investigators concluded the death resulted from unsafe interaction with a dangerous animal and failure to maintain a safe distance. The case highlighted the risks of engaging with large predators in unregulated facilities, especially when barriers are inadequate and human behavior provokes the animal. The recovered footage and photographs serve as a cautionary record, showing how quickly curiosity, inexperience, or disregard for safety can become fatal, and emphasizing the importance of proper barriers, supervision, and adherence to safety protocols. It was December 5th, 2018, at a high-rise hotel on South Beach, Miami, Florida. Late afternoon, with visitors moving quietly through the lobby and conference areas as staff prepared for the influencer marketing panels and events on the upper floors. Nix Callahan, 23, had flown in from Austin to attend panels, meet other content creators, and network with brands. Her content focused on fitness, lifestyle, and visually striking shots, often featuring high-angle perspectives from rooftops, cliffs, and balconies. Throughout the day, she had been posting stories and clips, tagging sponsors and other attendees, emphasizing daring visuals and dramatic angles to maintain engagement with her audience. After returning to her suite on the 14th floor, Nix stepped onto the balcony overlooking the beach and ocean. The railing consisted of glass panels set into a metal frame approximately 40 inches high. The late afternoon sun reflected off the glass, creating a bright glare. The concrete floor of the balcony was smooth and slightly warm from hours of sunlight. She set up her small tripod on a table with practiced precision, adjusting her phone until the sweeping vista of sand, ocean, and skyline framed her perfectly. There was a thrill in the tilt of the shot, a subtle intoxication in the illusion of danger. Her plan was to lean backward over the edge to create the illusion of peril while the camera recorded. She positioned both hands on the top of the glass railing, adjusting her stance to appear precarious. A heartbeat passed, measured and silent, as if time had paused to watch her theatrics. As she leaned further to exaggerate the angle, her center of gravity shifted beyond the edge. Her hand slipped on the smooth surface, leaving her unsupported. Nix fell backward over the balcony. From the street below, pedestrians and beachgoers did not immediately notice the incident, though a couple near the pool deck saw the motion and called emergency services. She landed on the concrete walkway adjacent to the pool area, sustaining severe trauma to her head, neck, and spine. Hotel security arrived shortly thereafter, finding her unresponsive and pinned awkwardly on the ground. Paramedics arrived quickly, but were unable to stabilize Nix Callahan, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators documented the balcony, noting the glass railing, smooth surface, and lack of secondary safety barriers. Her phone and tripod remained silent witnesses to the final moments of a calculated performance that had gone fatally wrong. Every detail, the adjustments, the stance, the lean, was captured in the static evidence, a record of risk taken too far. The incident was ruled accidental. Authorities concluded that Nix's death resulted from leaning beyond the railing and losing support on a slick surface, highlighting the inherent risks of high-angle content creation. A safety review was conducted by the hotel in response to the incident. The case emphasized how visually striking content combined with inattention to environmental hazards can quickly become fatal. Investigators noted that the accident could have been prevented at multiple points. By maintaining a safe distance from the edge, using proper support or safety gear, or avoiding risky camera angles entirely. The recovered footage and photographs now serve as a cautionary record, demonstrating how a moment intended for aesthetic appeal transformed into a deadly accident in seconds. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now.